I just got back from 2 weeks in one of Europe's most expensive cities, so let me tell you everything I spent and how I did it on a budget. Today I'm going to be referring to an app I was using throughout the trip, not sponsored, but it is really great. It's called Travel Spend. I'm going to put it on screen when I'm referring to it so you can see what I'm looking at. But let me start off with one of the most expensive parts of the trip, which were the flights. I was flying to Copenhagen from the UK, from Bristol in England, so the flights were pretty affordable. Everything is going to be in CAD, but I'll also put a USD conversion. And I spent $145.51 on flights. That was round trip with Ryanair with just a personal item. So I did it pretty cheaply by getting everything I could into this tiny personal item, not bringing a checked bag or carry-on bag. And I basically just fit everything into a packing cube inside this small backpack. I also managed to fit a tripod, a camera, my laptop, chargers, everything else, and I just tied some shoes onto it and packed a couple things in my jacket as well. I was able to put some sweaters in there in the sleeves and just carry that on. And on the way back, the Ryanair staff were a little bit stingy and tried to get me to pay, but I took some stuff out, rearranged, and then it was getting close to the flight actually taking off, so they just kind of gave up on me and let me go through. So that was really lucky, but if you can, personal item is great. When I was actually looking for these flights, I saw a lot cheaper dates. I think I saw even around 80 Canadian dollars round trip. Unfortunately, I had to spend a little bit extra because I was flying on more specific dates when I was actually going to be house sitting, which I'll get into a little bit more in the next couple minutes. But because I was tied down to certain dates, that's why I ended up spending a little bit more. So it really depends on the time of year as well of when you're going to be traveling, but you could get the price really low, probably as low as even 60 Canadian dollars, which is crazy if you're coming from the UK. So not bad. Usually after flights is accommodation in terms of what's the most expensive during your trip. Sometimes it's even the most expensive depending on how far you're flying and where you're staying. But luckily I was able to basically pay nothing for my accommodation. I only ended up spending $40.35 Canadian for one night at a hostel. Everything else was free. And the main way I was able to do this was through house sitting. I have linked a couple videos above if you want to check out previous house sitting videos I posted on this channel last week and the week before. But this was a really awesome way to see Copenhagen and not have to spend a lot of money because usually it is pretty expensive. Essentially, I was watching a cat that had an automatic feeder. It was the friendliest cat I've ever met, and I just love cats. They're so cute. And all I had to do was play with him, give him some water, make sure the feeder was working, and that was it. So it was a pretty good deal in my mind. I didn't pay anything for it. Usually you do have to pay for a membership, but I work with Trusted House Sitters as an affiliate. So they had given me a free membership at one point, and I just keep referring people, so I'm able to keep my membership going. But it is really awesome if you want to see the world and not spend a lot of money. I think the membership is maybe around 100 USD for the entire year. So if you're going to go traveling and make use of it, it is such a good way to see the world without spending way too much money. The other way I was able to save money on accommodation was working with the hostel I stayed at on the first night. I'd actually reached out to them ahead of time because I create travel content, and I just figured might as well see if they want some content in exchange for a free stay. And that's exactly what I did. I don't know why we ended up settling on not having the first day free as well. Typically I would have the whole stay covered, but because I was going to the hostel after the house sit, it got a bit complicated. So I stayed for 3 nights for free in exchange for posting 2 stories each day and 1 reel that was as a collaboration with their account, and that reel to be reposted as a TikTok, and I just posted that today. So all of that's done, and it was pretty easy. I also got some food included, I got a bike rental included, and yeah, breakfast every day. So it was pretty good, pretty sweet deal, and that helped me cut down on my spending on meals as well. So the biggest category actually ended up being my groceries. It was slightly more than my flights for 2 weeks. It was $149.06. Definitely not cheap because it was pretty expensive at the grocery store. I was doing my best to find ways to not spend too much. And also, I got a couple of free meals when I was at the hostel. So I should have been spending less on groceries, but it's tough when you're moving around a little bit as well and don't really know what to keep and like how much to stock up. So I think that was not too bad for the 2 weeks. And moving on to transportation, that was the next biggest category. I was a bit confused when I first got to Copenhagen because you can't use Apple Pay or a credit card and just tap when you get on the bus. You have to either pay in cash, which is weird because they don't really accept cash anywhere else. And other than that, you can use an app. So you can use an app, a DOT, or there's another one. I'll put the name on screen because I can't remember or don't really know how to say it. Apparently the DOT one is being discontinued, so there's another app you can now use. But I wish I knew that before I arrived because I was really confused at the beginning. Also, the way that the transportation works, if you're getting on a bus, you don't have to like pay right away. You just get on and no one really seems to check. I'm sure they have people coming around and asking if you have a ticket to see it, but it was pretty laid back and chill. My total cost for the transportation for the whole time I was there was $64.83. And that also includes my buses to and from the airport, but on both sides. So most of that was actually my coach bus from Wales to Bristol and back, as well as my bus from the city to the airport in Copenhagen and return. And just a little side note about the grocery stores I went to, I will put them on screen. These are the ones I enjoyed the most and went to the most, but there's definitely some more expensive ones as well. I found these ones to be pretty cost effective though. So the next category I have is restaurants, and I did go out to eat a little bit, not too much. I think on here it was just from 2 meals, maybe. Yeah, it was just from 2 things, which is crazy. So the total was $57.09. The first was fries and a beer from a brewery, which was alone $30, which is insane. The only other thing I bought was avocado toast at a cafe, and that was like $17, which is also ridiculous. Then I already covered accommodation, but right under that was coffee. And the coffees are definitely expensive here. Actually, I think I might have missed one in my thing. Okay, so the coffee I put down is $26, but it was actually $36 because I had a couple coffees and they're all around $10, which was also crazy. But they do have pretty good coffee at the cafes. I enjoyed them, and they usually have oat milk as their alternative milk or just regular cow's milk. Some places have almond milk, I think, but usually it's just oat milk, and they are really small coffees for what you get. So that was a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. Okay, and my last little bit of spending was on shopping. So I got a really cute little grandma cardigan from a vintage flea market thing and it was called Vera's Market. It was actually really cool. I went to a bunch of flea markets and I loved that. It was a total of $8.62, which was so reasonable. I was able to pay with my card, which was amazing. I wasn't quite sure, and I know that some of the flea markets don't do that. You have to have cash. So that's just something to be aware of if you are going to them. And another little fee I ended up spending money on was 3 hours at the locker at the hostel. For some reason, they only have paid lockers, which I haven't seen at a hostel before, and it was $5.27. Sorry about the lighting, it is getting super dark because there is a huge thunderstorm coming, but I'm just gonna wrap it up quickly. So I also forgot to mention that I did some activities, and that came to a total of $42.64. This was some pole classes I did, pole fitness at a studio. I did 2 classes, so they were about $21 each. It is more expensive than what I would pay usually, but kind of standard, so that wasn't too crazy. And then that brings us to the total. So the total for this trip was 550 Canadian dollars, which is just over $400 US. And I honestly think that is pretty amazing for 2 weeks of travel, including flights, including accommodation, food, activities, everything I did. You can go back and see some of my other videos to see what I did, but I am pretty proud of how I planned this trip and everything I did to keep the budget intact. I was using this app, Travel Spend, to put everything in and make sure I was kind of staying on budget per day. The daily budget was around 38 Canadian dollars. So not too bad, but let me know what you think in the comments. I'm curious if you thought I would be spending more or less, or just in general how I spent my money, if you would do something similar or if you would be spending all your money on food, because I know some people like to eat out the whole time they're traveling and I didn't really mind cooking so much. But yeah, that's a wrap for this video. I will see you guys next time for a new one. It's going to be me moving a little bit and packing things up because I'm heading to another destination soon. Make sure you subscribe because I do put up 2 new videos every single week, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!